In the frozen Ural Mountains of Soviet Russia, a group of 9 young hikers set off on a journey that would end in tragedy. It was February 1959. Their leader, Igor Dyatlov, was an engineering student, skilled, confident, and respected. With him were 8 companions, all experienced mountaineers. They carried skis, journals, cameras, and the spirit of adventure. Their destination was Otorten Mountain, a peak so remote that its name, in the language of the native Mansi people, meant "don't go there." 4 days, they pushed through the snow. They laughed, took photos, and wrote in their diaries, never realizing those final words would one day be studied by investigators worldwide. But on the night of February 1st, something happened, something that would force them to flee their tent. Half-dressed, into the deadly cold of Siberia. When they failed to return, search parties were sent. Weeks later, rescuers stumbled upon a scene that would baffle experts for decades. The hiker's tent was discovered first abandoned, half buried in snow. But the detail that shocked investigators most was that the tent had been slashed open from the inside. Why would trained mountaineers destroy their only shelter in the middle of a blizzard?
Scattered footprints led away from the tent. Some were barefoot, some in socks, one with just a single shoe. The track stretched hundreds of meters down toward the forest. The first bodies were found near the edge of the woods, lying beside the remains of a small campfire. They wore only underwear. Their hands and feet were badly burned, as if they had tried desperately to cling to the flames. Nearby, 3 more bodies were discovered. Dyatlov himself was among them. Their position suggested they were crawling back toward the tent, trying to return, but never making it. It wasn't until the spring thaw that the final 4 hikers were found buried under 4 meters of snow in a ravine. Their injuries defied explanation. 1 had a fractured skull. 2 had massive chest trauma, broken ribs that resembled the crushing force of a car accident, yet their skin showed no external wounds. Another was missing her tongue. Radiation was detected on some of their clothing. Cameras and journals recovered from the snow showed nothing unusual, lonely smiling faces and frozen landscapes. But something, in that final night, had driven them into terror. The Soviet authorities launched an immediate investigation. What they found only deepened the mystery. Pathologists concluded that 6 hikers had died from hypothermia, but 3 had fatal injuries too severe to explain by cold alone. Chest fractures, skull damage, internal bleeding. 1 body with no tongue. Strangely, there were no signs of struggle, no evidence of an attack, no footprints around the tent except the hiker's own. The official report described the deaths as caused by, quote, a compelling natural force. Yet no one could agree on what that force was. At first, investigators suspected an avalanche, but experts argued the slope was too shallow for snow to suddenly bury the tent, and the tent itself was still standing. The case was quietly closed. Files were sealed. For decades, the incident was hidden in secrecy. Rumors spread that the Soviet military had intervened, suppressing evidence of what really happened. But the mystery refused to fade.
Over the years, countless theories have tried to explain what happened at Dyatlov Pass. Avalanche remains the simplest explanation. A small snow slide could have forced the hikers to flee their tent in panic. But this doesn't explain the bizarre injuries or the radiation. Military testing is another. In the 1950s, secret Soviet weapons were tested in remote areas. Some believe parachute mines exploded nearby, scaring the hikers into fleeing. The pressure wave could explain the internal injuries, but not the missing tongue. Others point to UFOs. Locals reported strange glowing orbs in the sky around the time of the tragedy. Could the hikers have witnessed something they weren't meant to see? And then there's the Yeti theory. Some suggest the hikers were attacked by a wild creature. In one recovered photo, the hikers captured a dark figure in the distance, fueling speculation. But again, no animal tracks were ever found. Each theory explains part of the mystery, but none explain it all. More than 60 years later, the Dyatlov Pass incident remains unsolved. Books, documentaries, and endless debates continue. Some see it as a tragedy of nature, others as a cover-up of something far darker. In 2019, Russian authorities reopened the case. Their conclusion: an avalanche after all. But many researchers remain unconvinced. The evidence simply doesn't fit neatly into any one box. Today, hikers still visit the site, now known as Dyatlov Pass. A memorial stands where the bodies were found, and each year new theories emerge, each trying to answer the same haunting question. What terrified 9 experienced mountaineers so badly that they ran into the frozen night, half-clothed, never to return? Perhaps the truth lies buried forever beneath the snow. Or perhaps the mountains keep their secrets. Before tragedy struck, the hikers seemed in good spirits. Their recovered diaries tell of jokes, songs, and playful arguments. They even documented building a small improvised stove inside their tent, writing about how warm it kept them in the freezing nights. Their last photographs show smiles, snow-covered peaks, and the bond of friendship. One of the final diary entries read, "Now we rest." No hint of fear. No sign of what was to come. Searches later said it was eerie. Walking into a camp that looked frozen in time. Half-finished meals. Skis stuck in the snow. A single boot standing upright like someone meant to return for it. The rescuers described the atmosphere as heavy, unnatural, as if something unseen still lingered in the cold air. Many refused to speak of what they felt that day. Some researchers suggest the hikers were victims of something called paradoxical enracing. In extreme hypothermia, the body sometimes behaves strangely, causing victims to remove clothing despite freezing temperatures. But the injuries, the missing tongue, and crushed ribs. Hypothermia alone cannot explain that. Another theory involves infrasound. Certain wind conditions can create a low-frequency hum, barely audible, that causes panic, nausea, and irrational behavior. Could a natural phenomenon have terrorized them so completely that they fled their tent in terror? Local legends also play a role. The Mansi people, indigenous to the region, believed some mountains were sacred and dangerous to outsiders. Some suggest the hikers unknowingly entered forbidden territory, triggering supernatural forces in the folklore. Still, no theory fully accounts for all evidence. Radiation on clothing, strange injuries, footprints leading into the trees. Every explanation leaves questions unanswered.